Well, yeah. What's going on, guys? So today we got to talk about, as you can see it, Trump done bomb Iranian nuclear sites. Now, honestly, I don't think that's. Some people are saying that this is going to be the start of World War III, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to get to that level. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to get to that level whatsoever, but a lot of people are saying that this is the start of World War III. How many people really think that this is going to be World War III? Because I don't necessarily think it's going to get to that level. Because one way that would actually prevent it from being able to get to that level is if, let's say, for instance, Iran has other allies that will probably come to their aid. I don't think many of those other allies are going to decide to whether or not they're going to come to Iran's aid, which would just make it a regular conventional war. But many people believe that Russia or China or somebody else would get involved. I don't think that's going to happen. But without further ado, let's look into it.
Diplomatic assets, but the U.S. military and the defense officials who I'm speaking with are particularly concerned about those bases there. The U.S. has moved additional personnel into the region in recent months. Now, a lot of that is defensive in nature, right? They've put additional ground-based interceptors in. There's more ships in the area. There's now 2 carrier strike groups in the CENTCOM area. Destroyers have moved in closer to Israel in recent days, that is for the defense of Israel, but they can also serve to defend Americans and American assets in the region. In addition to that, the U.S. has brought in additional aircraft and fighter jets in recent days and weeks, and that is also so that they can shoot down incoming projectiles. Remember, the U.S. Air Force was pivotal when in one of these now numerous back and forths between Iran and Israel since October 7th, when the U.S. Air Force was up in the air shooting down multiple projectiles, a lot of drones that were coming from Iran launched towards Israel. Now, I suspect that message from President Trump is as much aimed at big Iran as it is at these proxy groups. There's a lot of concern about some of the smaller bases and where the U.S. has a small number of troops in in Iraq and in Syria. They aren't as heavily fortified, and with so many of those proxy networks, they really have freedom of movement and maneuver space around them. That is one of the big concerns. So, Jose, I can also tell you we're learning a little bit more detail about what the U.S. did in Iran tonight. We know that those 3 strikes were, those 3 sites were targeted, but we now know that a big part of that targeting effort was actually conducted by the United States Navy. U.S. submarines launched off about 30 Tomahawk missiles known as TLAMs. Those are launched from the submarines. They impacted at least 2 of those sites at Isfahan and at Natanz, Jose. Again, the president saying that these strikes completely and totally obliterated the sites, but we'll have to wait and see when daylight hits exactly how much damage was done there.
Courtney Kube, thank you so very much. I want to go back to our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander. The president, Peter, said that some of his representatives were going to be speaking to the press as early as tomorrow.
That's right, Jose. We're told that we're going to hear from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, as well as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, will be speaking as well about 8 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow morning, where we might get a bit more specifics about what took place. But I think what's important to note is what Courtney just reported here on NBC, that the U.S., beyond those B-2 stealth bombers dropping those 30,000-pound bombs, a specific number that we still have not been able to identify. We know it was multiple bombs that were dropped. We now know that there were at least 30 Tomahawk missiles that were also fired from U.S. Navy vessels, apparently by submarines there. So to the point that we've been having throughout the course of this hour since the president spoke, when given a wide range of options, and it was communicated to me and our colleagues over the course of the last several days that all options remained on the table. Clearly, among the options, one would have been to exclusively focus on Fordo, which of course is that deep bunker of a nuclear enrichment site beneath a mountain there in the center of Iran, but that the president, as evidenced by the use of Tomahawk missiles beyond the B-2 bombers, has decided to go further than that, to focus on 3 separate nuclear targets here, delivering what they hope will be, in his words, a totally and completely obliterating blow to the nuclear program there. I should note that in my conversations here with multiple White House officials just before the president spoke, they told me that the president currently has no plans for additional strikes, but that now leaves open the question, as he has communicated in the form of that post a short time ago and in his remarks earlier, that if they do not see any movement toward peace going forward, if there is future retaliation, that the U.S. will go after Iran again, they said, with precision, speed, and skill. And he says this time it will be much easier, something they'll be able to do in just minutes, because so many of the defenses there in Iran have been defeated, knocked out by the Israeli Air Force over the course of the last several weeks. Again, I think of course, tonight is historic. It is significant and is monumental. And now the infighting will exist on both sides of the political aisle about whether this was constitutional and their views of it. Republicans and Democrats are largely divided there. But ultimately, I think the real way that the legacy will exist for this president is not just the decision to do this, but what the immediate days that follow and perhaps weeks and months that follow look like. And what form does the retaliation take? Is the U.S. Does this lead to peace, or does it lead to a protracted conflict? All things the president, through our conversations with national security officials and White House officials over the course of this week, had communicated to him by those advisors as they spoke to him over the week. In effect, he was told, as it was described to me, the pros and the cons, what the potential fallout would be of each potential scenario. And so now we have seen what the president has decided. Now we wait to see what Iran decides to do in response.
Peter Alexander at the White House, thank you so very much. I want to bring in retired U.S. Army General Barry McCaffrey, NBC News military analyst. General, looking at this strictly from a military perspective, this was, to use the president's words, extremely successful.
Yeah, I think this was a bold and largely decisive attack to change the nuclear development equation inside Iran. Iran is greatly weakened, not just from the ongoing Israeli air attack on facilities throughout the country, but they're isolated. They have no allies. Their proxies have been largely destroyed or neutralized. I think it may well be an incentive to negotiate, certainly not tomorrow, but in the coming months. The only drawback to it that's obvious, it's a political disaster probably for the Trump administration, largely not supported by the American people, by the Democratic Party, by his own party. And I think it also tends to gloss over what the Iranians are going to do in the next 72 hours. It's hard for me to imagine there won't be a military response, hopefully ineffectual, but you always got to worry about the golden BB striking a U.S. Navy warship at sea, catastrophic losses, in which case I think it will unleash the power of the U.S. Air Force and naval air and Tomahawk missiles on the Iranian nation.
That would be essentially, the reaction would be then essentially a de facto decapitation of the Iranian regime. General, the things have changed so much for Iran after the 7th of October, and you and I have had these conversations, for years now, about the effectivity of the Israeli armed forces and its security and intelligence divisions when it's destroying much of Hezbollah with the walkie-talkies and pagers to what they've done in Gaza, and they continue to do in Gaza. General, how much of that has permitted the United States to conclude this operation?
Well, I think the impact of intelligence in general, the U.S., of course, has a remarkable overhead systems, electronic intercept, human capability. The Israelis have a lot of native language speakers inside Iran. So the degree of penetration of the Iranian military and government is simply unbelievable. We also understood that they had mapped out pretty well with captured documents from a few years ago, the state of development of their whole nuclear program. And I might add, although it's impossible to end the Iranian nuclear program, you can delay it by a year, a decade. And so my assumption is that's what's happened. We may have to strike it again, but the big question in my mind, Jose, is in the next 72 hours, how does Iran respond? They're weakened. We have 50,000 troops in the area. There are 2 carrier battle groups there now. A third has been told to deploy to the region. There's a lot of Air Force power in Saudi Arabia, the Gulf Coast states, Italy, the UK. Essentially, we're de facto at war with Iran for now.
General Barry McCaffrey, always a pleasure to speak with you. I thank you very much. Really appreciate it. That concludes this NBC News special report. Once again, recapping the President of the United States announcing just over an hour ago that the United States had successfully attacked and, according to the President, completely obliterated these 3 nuclear sites inside Iran. And one of those 3 sites,
bruh, I literally had no fucking idea. Excuse my French. Do you see the size of Israel? I thought it was I thought it was relatively small, but I thought it would be like maybe like this size compared to Iran. I had no idea that Israel is this doggone small. This goes to show how much I know about other countries. I'm sorry, guys. I had no idea that Israel is like a pinky compared to Iran. Pinky size compared to Iran. I thought it was going to be at least like bigger than that. Not necessarily larger than Iran, but bigger than this pinky size thing that we're looking at. But anyways,
it has been a deep under a mountain site that has been extremely hardened with concrete and steel. According to our sources, the United States used those bunker-busting bombs and possibly even the planes, the B-2s that are needed to transport those bombs. They had never been used. We're seeing that is the ordnance that was utilized in this one attack out of 3. The other ones were hit with Tomahawk missiles, more than 30 of them. That concludes this NBC News special report. We'll have much more breaking coverage right now on our streaming network, NBC News Now, and online at NBCNews.com. I'm Jose Diaz-Balart. Thank you for the privilege of your time.
Which Donald Trump hopes and wants, he said in his address, to be the only action they take. But they have urged Iran to now agree to an end to this war and to seek peace going forward. Our coverage will continue at the top of the hour.
Well, Uncle Trump said he was going to do this. Uncle Trump said he was going to do this. Remember when he said World War III was going to be short and lethal? Uncle Trump sure enough did. I wonder if everybody remember when he said World War III was going to be short. And not that long. Is this what he was talking about? Show me in the comments. Is this what he was talking about? Uncle Trump sure enough did it. Honestly, I would rather have him as the president than some weak-minded version of Kamala Harris. I would rather have this than a stooge like Kamala Harris in office where she allows everybody to control her. Even though I disagree with America being involved, I don't think we should be involved in anything that's going on overseas. But unfortunately, I think what the real big thing is, the real big issue with this is Iran basically has a reputation, and Iraq has basically a reputation for terrorist regimes, which is why everybody is so fearful of them having a nuclear weapon or creating or being able to produce mass nuclear weapons. Because for surely with the reputation that they've had, people are fearful of them actually using those said nuclear weapons in the first place. So that's why I really think this is happening the way that it is happening in the first place. They don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons because Iran will definitely has the reputation for acts of violence towards other countries and even their own people, terrorist regimes. While I don't necessarily think that ultimate regime change is going to be the actual solution, this may be a way to stall and prevent them from being able to actually obtain a nuclear weapon and prevent them from actually obtaining a nuclear weapon. It will probably slow down the building and the process of them having a nuclear weapon. It will probably stall them for the next 10 to 20 years. For the next 10 to 20 years. Now, what I do think in which how Iran would probably retaliate is the so-called Iranian sleeper cells that have been able to migrate to America through the southern border. Through the southern border. And if that doesn't become a problem or for the U.S. citizens in America, then we necessarily don't have anything to worry about. Yeah, you can sit here and say Iran said they were going to do this. Iran said that they were going to retaliate. They're not going to surrender, this and that and the third. But how many times have we known Iran to talk big shit, real tough, without actually backing it up? For the past 30 to 40 years since the 1990s, how much have we known Iran to talk a real good game without backing it up? And who believes that whatever retaliation that they may have planned is going to be devastating towards America? For many, many years, these people have been talking a real good game. Real good game. A real good game without being able to back it up. We destroyed Iraq in 2004, 2008. Destroyed them. Completely destroyed them. Yeah. So I don't think that this is going to converge into something bigger than what it is right now. Although a lot of people are being fearful, they're saying this is the rise of World War III. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen because, as you clearly have heard it, and I've called it at the beginning of this video, Iran doesn't have strong allies. Iran doesn't necessarily have strong allies that are going to come to their side. They don't. You think Russia's going to get involved? No, they're not. They can't even deal with Ukraine. They can't even deal with Ukraine. China, what connection do they have with Iran? What connection do they have with Iran? Literally, what connection do they really have with Iran? Somebody please tell me. The British, no, they're not going to turn around and come to Iran's aid. They allied with the U.S. Hundreds of years of relationships with the U.S. North Korea, not a doubt. I highly doubt it. South Korea, nope, highly doubt it. Saudi Arabia, nope. They've been at war with each other for the longest. Don't think that's going to happen. Want to talk about Taiwan? Nope. They up under our doggone umbrella. So they not finna join in. What other country is going to, what other major country? Poland? Nah, you forget about that. What other major country is going to actually join in and come to the aid of Iran? Like, comment, and subscribe, and you give me that answer in the comment section. See you for now. See you tomorrow. And peace out.